Lived up in a place up in the mountains called Badger, California, which later on would become one of the main preaching places of our Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj. So I lived up there, and I had one godbrother named Preraka. He was a disciple of Prabhupada. And the thing about my godbrother Preraka, who later got a nickname from Srila Narayan Maharaj as Pran Kishor, he was very dedicated to Srila Narayan Maharaj. He had actually accepted him as his very own Siksha Guru. And even from early 80s, he became attracted. And the way that he became attracted to Srila Narayan Maharaj was he was a pujari in the Philadelphia temple. And when they would dress the deities in the morning time, one devotee came and brought his tape recorder and had kirtan recordings of Srila Narayan Maharaj. And they would listen to that while they were doing the deity worship. So Pran Kishor became very much affected by hearing the kirtan of Srila Narayan Maharaj, and he asked about, well, who is this devotee? And they said, oh, this is Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj. He's the one that put Prabhupada into samadhi. And Pran Kishor says, really? So I want to meet him. So the next time he went to India, then that was around 1981, then some arrangements were made that he met Srila Narayan Maharaj and hosted a small little feast for him. And from that time on, he became very closely connected as the first Western devotee who would actually begin to perform various services to Srila Narayan Maharaj. And he asked Narayan Maharaj, you know, how can I serve you? And then he said, well, I was thinking that I wanted to make a very nice Shringasan for our Radha Vinod Bihari and Gauranga Mahaprabhu in our temple here in Mathura, Keshavji Gaudiya Math, and I wanted to silver plate that Shringasan. So if you want, you can help. And then Pran Kishor went back to America and made some money and gave this donation to him. Then a couple of years later, Srila Narayan Maharaj told him that he said, I have a piece of property that was donated, an old, very old, couple of 100 years old temple in Sevakunj, Vrindavan. And I want to renovate that temple. So if you want, you can help. So then Pran Kishor began to collect money in America and send it to Srila Narayan Maharaj for the construction of that temple. But in the very beginning of his endeavors to collect money, he asked me to help him, and he wanted to learn how to sell paintings, because at that time in ISKCON many devotees were supporting their lives as householders by selling artwork. And I had been doing that for some time. So he wanted me to show him how to do it, and I came up to the San Francisco Bay Area where he was living and stayed with him for a week or so and trained him in how to do that. So then for the next couple of years, he was doing that full time and sending everything that he made to Srila Narayan Maharaj. That actually endeared him very, very much, how he was sacrificing so much, even as a householder. He had children also, but he was sending everything. And later on, years later, when Srila Narayan Maharaj would come to America, Pran Kishor had a house that he was renting in Badger, California. And Srila Narayan Maharaj would come there every festival, every year. And Pran Kishor would wash his lotus feet and do Guru Puja, and all the devotees would cram into the house there, and Srila Narayan Maharaj would speak, and he would mention how this my very dear Pran Kishor, how he served, how he selflessly served. And Srila Narayan Maharaj would even weep sometimes, thinking of how he underwent so much difficulty for him. So Pran Kishor and myself were very, very close friends and godbrothers. And, you know, I also told him that I have always had such a regard for Srila Narayan Maharaj, and I would really like to meet him. I'd really like to, you know, have his association one day. So Pran Kishor, in the end of 1987, he called me up on the phone and he said, "How would you like a free ticket to go to India?" And I said, "Free ticket? Yeah, sure, why not? What is the requirement?" And then he said, basically, we just need a trusted devotee to carry the money that we've collected for the construction of this temple in Vrindavan. Because in those days you could not send the money through banks or anything like that. It had to be physically carried there, and it had to be changed into the local Indian rupees on the black market. And, you know, so they needed someone that could take this large sum of money. And they said, you know, we'd like you to do it. So I said, okay. And that was in the January of 1988 that I flew there to India and changed the money in Delhi, and then I came and took the train to Mathura and came to Sri Keshavji Gaudiya Math and asked, is Srila Narayan Maharaj here? Yes, he's upstairs. So I came up the stairs and there was Srila Narayan Maharaj standing there, and he knew that I had come from Pran Kishor, and I paid my full dandavats at his lotus feet, and then he said, "Oh, come into my room."
He was always really sweet with my parents. I would take my mum came in 98, 97, 98. My dad wouldn't come at that time, but in 2000, when he came to Wales again, Dad came, and he hadn't come to Gurudev's room. My mum had come to Gurudev's room, and actually Gurudev was ready to give my mum Harinam at that time. He was ready to give my mum Harinam, but Bright enough said, "Oh, maybe her husband will leave her." I'm not sure why, but my Gurudev said, "Oh, next year." I think maybe later in another life, but next life. We said, "Oh, my father, he's here, but he's in the hall." So then we went back to the program. We were waiting for Gurudev to come, and my dad was just standing at the back, and Gurudev came in and he put his arm around my dad. We didn't even introduce him, did we? We didn't even introduce him, but he came straight up to my dad. And then we went over and he was saying, "Oh..."
Yeah, amongst hundreds of people.
Yeah.
He went straight to that.
Straight to my dad.
Knowing who Dad was.
Yeah.
Just went, and you know, like, why didn't he come? You know, you always want Gurudev. There's like hundreds of people, and you want him to come to you, don't you?
Anyway, he went straight to our dad, and he was saying, "Oh, your daughters are very fortunate." He goes, "They have come into this line of Krishna consciousness. He says this is really, really very rare." And he said, "Oh, you know, you're their father." He goes, "But I'm also their father." And then my parents came a couple more times, but then they came in 2008 Italy Festival. And again, then my mum, I took them to see Gurudev, and Gurudev was like, "Oh," first of all, he said to my mum, she is your daughter." No, he said, no, that's what he said to my dad. He said, "Oh, she is my daughter and she is happy." Then he went to, and he was looking at me and I was like grinning. And then he went to my dad and he said, "Oh, she is your daughter, but no, you are her father, but I am her real father." And he looked at me and he was like, "Yes?" And I was like, "Yes, Gurudev." And then he patted me on the head. So Gurudev, yeah, he was really sweet to them. And I think that actually, although, you know, he's saying actually I'm her father, I'm her mother, that actually melted their hearts. I think they liked that, and they knew that he's like my dad would say, no, I know that he's your father for your spiritual life, you know. He was realizing that. One thing with Gurudev really always struck me, that Gurudev was made himself so available for his disciples, and he gave so much love and affection so personally. Although sometimes Gurudev may have ignored us. He'd be like, please Gurudev, please just look at me, and he would just like completely walk past you. But at the same time, sometimes everyone, I'd be in his room sometimes and people would be asking, they'd be new, and he'd be saying, any question that you have at any time, any doubts, he goes, you can call me, and he'd put his hand like this, you can call me, you can email me. And that's what Gurudev, he did. He made himself so personally available, and he had so much love and affection for all his disciples that I felt like Gurudev, he wasn't just my Diksha Guru, he was my Shiksha Guru, and I could fully go to Gurudev, and he made himself so available for that you didn't feel, sometimes I just feel stupid and shy, and I don't have anything worth to ask or anything, but still, that Gurudev was there for anything and that you could ask him.
Gurudev was always, so, like, I remember he took me to Jambu one time preaching, and he was getting me to, like, I knew I could barely speak, I'd be like shuddering at the microphone and really quiet, like, unable to like project my voice and stuff, but he was so like encouraging always, like so proud to present me, and that's really, I guess since then, that's really shown me like the caliber of personality he was, like what have I done to really like represent him or show him, like I've been like confused or conflicted often about this spiritual path and what it means and how to represent my Gurudev, and how to he wasn't like that though. He was somebody who had so much care and regard for each and every person, no matter what age they were. In Govardhan, in the last few weeks there, I was in his room once, and this Prabhu, he just walked by the room just really quickly. But Gurudev was like, he was always watching the door. He couldn't move much. He was watching the door, and he said, go get him. So he ran after Prabhu and brought him back in, and Gurudev was talking to him for like close to an hour, just thanking him profusely for all the seva he'd done. There was all kinds of court cases and stuff had been going on in Mathura for years, thanking him for all the services he'd done. And this was like constant in those few weeks in Govardhan. He was constantly calling people into his room and just profusely thanking them. And more time goes on, I realize what a rare thing it was to meet somebody like that, and inspires me to want to do something for him. I don't know what exactly, but I like kind of ran away from this whole path for like 6 years, but I could never run away from him. He would be in my dreams. He'd be the impact is really strong, and I don't quite understand it.
I remembered one time. Me and Manju Keshi, we went to America. It was like our exciting experience, and it was there that there was a festival. I can't remember the place. I think it was San Francisco. Yeah, and there was a class going on, and Guru was saying something, and then the conclusion of that was that yes, all you need to do is to take shelter of Śrī Guru and the Vaishnavas. So I was like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna do that. And but how to do that? So I went to see Gurudev and was asking him this question. Oh Gurudev, how do I take shelter of Śrī Guru? Then he just turned around, and he was so strong. It's really strong. He said, you have to fully surrender like that. And I just became afraid, and the first thought in my head was like, I don't know if I can do that. And then he just walked away, and then he walked a little bit further, and after some distance he turned around. You know, I think like, I can't remember, but after some distance he turned around and he said, and you need to obey all his teachings. And he walked away. So in this way, you know, he was very, you know, uncompromising. You know, he didn't say, you know, this or that, but you know, he always wanted, you know, he gave me that impression that he always wanted like 100%. You know, another time, I think it was in the Germany festival, I went to see him. Yeah, I was like going through difficult times, like crying and, you know, like really dramatic, you know, revealing my heart, saying, oh, Gurudev, I have so much lust in my heart, and, you know, and yeah, he did not entertain that, or he just looked at me very strongly, and all he said was, you must give it up. That's it. You know, he didn't say, oh, poor you, it's going to be all right. Maybe I was hoping something like that, but he was just very strongly cutting. And in the Bhaja festival, then Gurudev was speaking on the topic of 11th canto, and he was speaking about the, you know, who is the how you say that, like the intermediate devotee, the Madhyam Adhikari, his qualification, and he was saying, I didn't understand that, you know, I was like trying to analyze and just understand by my mind, and because, you know, you hear so many things, and often you know, it seems like contradictory. So I went to ask him actually about that. It's like, you know, did you, like, you know, does it mean that the Madhyam Adhikari is on the stage of Bhav Bhakti? And then he looked at me and he said, yes, and you should quickly come on this stage. So and you know, that is the impression that I have. It's like from Gurudev, he was wanting to, you know, like this 100%. He didn't say, oh, you know, this life you can stay as you are and slowly progress. You know, he was saying always being very strong like that.